Okay, this is Tech Tools with Purpose at Home and School K through 12. My name is Christy Mudd. I am part of the Deeper Learning resource team, and you can find me at Twitter at cmud19.
Also joining us today is me, Maddie Shepard. I'm a Deeper Learning resource teacher as well. I'm your Zone 2 Deeper Learning contact, although I love to work with anyone across the district. You can find me on Twitter at MaddieShep_KY.
And hi, I'm Joe McKim. I'm also part of the Deeper Learning team. I support middle schools and high schools. I am the lead Deeper Learning support for middle schools. And you can click the link there with my name and email me, or you can follow me on Twitter at Joe McKim for KY. And when you post great things that are happening in your school, please tag all of us so we can know what's happening with you and your students during NTI and beyond.
Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to talk about before we get into showing you any of our cool tech tools we've got prepped for you today is the SAMR model, which is kind of a framework for technology integration in your learning designs. So SAMR stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. And we'll talk about what all of that means right now. So when we're thinking about integrating technology into our learning designs and into classrooms, whether it's for ourselves as teachers or whether it's for students, we need to think with intentionality like we do with all of our plans. So this framework is one that we can use when we're making choices about what technology that we're integrating and how we're using it and the purpose of the use of the technology as well. So a few things to think about. Just again, so we can retain intentionality, but also because teachers are absolutely inundated with education technology options these days. I mean, I feel like ed tech companies are popping up left and right, and they're always trying to sell us something. So the problem isn't a lack of options. There are plenty of options out there. What the problem is feeling fatigue at what to choose when we look at all the options. So first, think about, what do you want the technology to do? Is there a process that you want to be quicker or more efficient? Do you want more of something or less of something? More student interaction or less? More feedback or less? More functionality and agency for kids or less? And then the second question, how might this technology enhance learning outcomes? If there's no enhancement, then there's not really a huge reason for us to use the technology. We want to be using it to make our lives easier, to enhance learning outcomes, or to increase the functions that we as teachers or our kids are able to do. But to use tech is not a good reason to use tech. So, and we all know that. One of our colleagues says one of my favorite quotes, "A fool with a tool is still just a fool." So be thinking about what we want the tech tools to do and how it could increase learning outcomes or enhance learning outcomes. Now, with that being said, let's look at the framework. So the framework is organized very similar to Bloom's taxonomy, where at the bottom, we have some of our lower leverage forms of integration, and at the top, we have our higher leverage forms of integration. And before we go any further, I just want to say that the goal is not for us to live in this top area 100% of the time. There will be times when the tech tool that we choose is merely a substitution or merely an augmentation, and that's fine. We're definitely not saying that these two levels are the be-all, end-all, and that we should always strive to be here 100% of the time. But what we are saying is to think about the tech tools and how the use of them in your learning designs with kids could redefine an experience or could modify an experience. And so, again, we don't want you to think that these are the only blessed areas for us to live. These are okay too, but awareness increases intentionality, and that's what we're really after. So, again, the lowest level is substitution, where the tech that we're using is merely a substitute for something that we were doing before, but there's really no increased function. So, for example, if a learner is able to take notes on a Word document rather than writing in their notebook. There's not really anything, earth-shattering. The learning outcomes aren't really super enhanced with this substitution. They can use spell check. It might prompt them to indent. So there's a little bit of, organizational gain there. But again, the functional changes is not much. The kids are still taking notes. When we move up the taxonomy and think about augmentation, the technology is a substitute for the task, and I'll use that same analogy of taking notes, but there is some functional improvement. So think about something like a Google Doc. Now remember our example down here for substitution was a Word document. The difference between Google Doc and Word documents, big differences in my view. We don't have to worry about saving Google Docs, which I'm sure has saved all of us as teachers and our kids many, many headaches. And we don't have to keep those flash drives or even older than that floppy disks under lock and key anymore, because everything is saved on the internet. So there is some functional improvement there. Everything is cataloged, everything is saved. In addition, Google is collaborative by nature. So learners can collaborate on the same document. That's not something they could do with a Word document. So there is some functional change. If we were to move up the taxonomy, again, we're still going to work with that taking notes analogy. We're looking at modification. The technology that we're using allows for significant task redesign. So think about something like Google Keep or even Jamboard, which is also a new piece of the Google suite. Jamboard is basically an online post-it whiteboard where kids can take notes. They can color code those notes. They can share them. They can collaborate. They can add pictures. They can move them around and group them for organizational purposes. They can add links. So the act of taking notes is significantly redesigned when kids can add pictures, when kids can share with each other, when kids can color code and start to organize in a way that makes sense to them, when they can collaborate. And then finally, the highest level, again, and this is in this area of transformation, when something like a simple task like taking notes is really transformed, where kids can do things that they were previously inconceivable, that there was no way they could do before. So we're thinking about something like Padlet, for example, which does a lot of the same things that Jamboard does. It allows kids to share and work collaboratively. It allows kids to insert hyperlinks or videos. So in a lot of ways, it redefines the way a learner captures notes or captures learning. Another example I might throw out here is something like Flipgrid, where kids could capture their notes verbally, which is something that is previously inconceivable with a lot of the other technologies that are out there. So really we're thinking in this area of modification or redefinition, where kids can do a lot more and the task changes significantly based on the functions that the technology offers. And again, we're not saying that everyone needs to try and live up in these areas all the time, but that when you look for technology, you're looking for ways to leverage it in these ways as often as you can. And it's all about how you use it. If you buy a Swiss Army knife, but you only ever use the spoon, I don't even know if that comes on a Swiss Army knife, but let's say it does, then you're not really, maximizing all the uses. So it's also about how you use the technology. A great place to look for more information on this is to Google Kathy Schrock. She's kind of an authority on the SAMR model. And then our IT3 folks, the deeper learning team loves to collaborate with. They've got lots of knowledge and lots of pointers on working within the SAMR model as a technology integration framework as well. Next, we're going to introduce some tools that allow for increased collaboration and enhance learning outcomes that way. So we'll be talking about Padlet, Nearpod, and Pear Deck. We have a few other listed here, but we only have time to highlight our absolute faves, so those are the ones that we're going to touch on today. We have some links and videos integrated throughout the slide deck. We would encourage you to explore on your own. We likely will not be watching the videos together, but we'll point these things out for you to explore on your own.
Maddie, just wanted to jump in really quick. Actually, some of those that are underlined are actually links to some of the websites. So I tried to bold the ones we're going to be covering next. I just wanted to clarify.
Perfect. All right, first, Google Slides. Google Slides is free. It's included in our G Suite that we all have, as JCPS teachers, have access to. Learners access this via their Google login, which we all have and kids all have. Kids can collaborate and share slides in small groups, with entire classes, with partners via the share link or via email. They can collaborate and create shared projects and presentations, which again promotes collaboration and that skill of becoming a productive collaborator that we in JCPS have as part of our set of backpack skills. Kids can also edit and revise collaboratively as well, so increasing efficiency for kids and ourselves. And one of the best parts is Google, and Google Slides is no different, allows us to access accidentally deleted or moved parts of the presentation. Everything is always saved and cataloged in Google, and simply by clicking File and then Version History, can a teacher or a student look at the entire version history of a file such as a Google slide deck, and look at where the thing you're looking for was deleted or where it went wrong, and you can always restore to that version. So mistakes are easily erased in Google Slides, which is great for us and great for kids.
So I just wanted to mention on some of these slides, you'll notice, you can go ahead and move on to the next one, sorry.
Okay.
But on some of these slides, you'll notice some videos, and we link those really as resources for you all. We won't necessarily watch them all today, but they're definitely great resources to check out. So now I'm going to be talking about Jamboard. This has become like a new thing everyone is using, I feel like, and I just started using it myself. So it is free. It is included in your G Suite. So if you go to your Waffle, Jamboard is located right there. It can be used and or created by students and teachers, depending on, like she mentioned in the SAMR model, what is it you're wanting the tech to do? Multiple people can respond at the same time. So it's very collaborative because multiple students can be on it at the same time. And then different uses you can use it for: daily check-ins, community builders, virtual discussions, collaborative drawing. I know Maddie mentioned using it as note-taking. So it has multiple functions. So to the right, you'll notice, if you have time, you can watch this video by our own Cheryl Bibby about using Jamboard. And then also at the bottom, I have linked it goes to a website that also has some Jamboard templates already created if you're looking for something to help you build kind of a virtual community this coming fall. So if you click there, it'll just take you straight there.
Next, we have a few tech tools that offer some enhanced presentation options for you and your learners.
Okay, so some of the presentation tech tools that we suggest or we've used in classrooms are TouchCast, WeVideo, iMovie, Animoto, Nearpod, Pear Deck, and PlayPosit, and Green Screen Do Ink. We're going to be touching mostly on TouchCast and Green Screen, and then also Pear Deck. So on this slide, there are some images from my classroom. This is one student who wanted to actually be sitting on something in the green screen. So you'll notice there's a green ball and a green background. In the bottom right, students are presenting their projects, which is huge, in the backpack world. And then up at the top right, if you have a chance, that is a project that was created using WeVideo in my classroom. Okay, so TouchCast and Green Screen Do Ink. So TouchCast is an app on the iPad. There is the app on the iPhone, but it's not the same. It functions a little differently. So this is actually an app on the iPad. It does require a login, but it is free access. There are green screen capabilities. Some things I've used it for include a newscast, talk shows, reenactments, book talks, and product reviews. And if I want to relate this to NTI or from the spring, I actually, to keep all students in mind, I gave a non-tech and a tech option. So for a speech or newscast that we were doing, I gave them the option of TouchCast, but I let their parents know and I let them know that, you know, they would have to log in and create their login and then use that app, but I also allowed a non-tech option. So to the right, if you get a chance, this is a student who actually created a speech on food deserts in Louisville. And she, during NTI, worked with her parents to create, and I don't know why it's not popping up, but to create a TouchCast at home. So this was actually a project that was created during NTI. At the bottom, Green Screen Do Ink, and actually I mentioned stop motion a little bit. So Green Screen Do Ink is available on the, and Green Screen Stop Motion are available on iPad, iPhones, and Androids, but they do cost money. Green Screen Do Ink, I believe, is $1.99. This is definitely something that if you're going back to your classroom, you might want to consider. But it is also something that if parents and students are interested, you could mention the technology, but obviously it couldn't be something you required. Doesn't require a login once you've downloaded the app. Some things I've used it for: reenactments, book talks, book trailers, and storytelling. The video I included on the right, I included on purpose because it's actually, it's a stop motion video, but the green screen they used was a green piece of paper. And so I wanted to kind of show the ease of a green screen. TouchCast has green screen capabilities, but so does Green Screen Do Ink, so does WeVideo, so do a lot of technologies. But so many people think that they have to have, a green screen. But you could have green paper, you could color the paper green, you could do all of those things, and it would still work. So definitely consider these things in possible tech options, not necessarily something mandatory, because we do know that some of our families have limited tech.
Next, we have Pear Deck. Just for awareness purposes, Pear Deck and Nearpod are very similar in terms of the functions that they offer. Pear Deck is free. This picture here is a link to the Pear Deck website where you can make a free account and start to play. And this video here is like a 3-minute video on how to get started and gives a really great overview of all the functions that Pear Deck offers. It is a Google add-on, so it works directly with Google Slides. So there's a lot of fluidity there if you're already using Google Slides as your primary presentation mode. And don't think that this is just for teachers. Kids can use this too. So you don't have to sue Google. We'll change that, but you use your Google login. So no more, or there's not increased logins with this one. It's simply accessed via your Google login, which is great for us and for kids. And the primary function here is that it makes presentations interactive. In addition to offering content and just showing something on a screen that Google Slides, lets us do, Pear Deck allows us to integrate collaborative discussions right into our slide decks. It allows us to embed formative assessments. It allows us to take surveys. It allows us to integrate learning checks. And there's ways to add interactive charts and visuals to really make your Google Slide presentation from an area of consumption where kids are just consuming information to an area of interaction and potentially creation, where kids have an active role when they're looking at the content, which helps learning stick. And again, it's similar to Nearpod. Nearpod offers a lot of the same functionalities, works directly with Google Slides. Nearpod does offer virtual field trips, so there is a minor difference there, but there are levels of Nearpod that aren't free, but the primary basic level is free. So similar technologies there, but these are great tools to take your presentation, again, from something that's very consumptive and passive for learners to something that's very interactive for learners.
All right, so now we're going to shift into using technology as a form of assessment. How can we use our tech tools with assessment? And some of the things we're going to look at today are some ideas you might want to look at. Kahoots, a lot of teachers are using Kahoot now. Clickers, which will help you poll with kids. Quizzes, which is a little bit like Socrative or Kahoots, if you've tried those. It's another way to get ask kids questions in an electronic form. Quizlet, and then of course all of our G Suite tools can be used as formative or even sometimes summative assessments as well. We're going to dig into a couple of these right now. We're going to start with Google Forms and Google Sheets. First of all, the plus of using Google Forms and Sheets as an assessment tool is that it's free. It's part of our Google G Suite, and it's easily incorporated into your Google Classroom and your NTI work. And as we think about using Google Forms, think about them in terms of that SAMR model. If all you're doing is taking a multiple choice test and taking it from paper pencil to put it in a Google form as multiple choice, that's that lower level of the SAMR model. That's substitution. We're substituting paper and pencil for an electronic version that does exactly the same thing, right? But if we move that forward and we start adding opportunities for kids to have short answer or extended response questions, where maybe they have to create some solutions on their own and explain their thinking, we may be now using that Google form to enhance or augment. So we're stepping up that SAMR model to the next level. This can easily be used by teachers and students alike simply by using your Google login, same as you do for all of the other Google suites. We could use this with getting to know you activities at the beginning of school. We're starting with NTI, and it's going to be important for us to build relationships with students. A lot of those things we do at the beginning of the year where we ask them for reading inventories or what they did over the summer that's applicable to schoolwork, having them write about what's going on in their home life during quarantine. A lot of those things, we can ask those questions using a Google form, and it automatically populates those responses into a Google Sheet where we can see all of the answers to one question. We could see responses in a pie chart form if we're looking at what percentage of our students worked over the summer, if we're talking about high school students, right? Things like that. The data is really easy to look at. It automatically is in Sheets where we can manipulate it, disaggregate it, share it, organize it by whatever category we want. So Google Forms is a great formative and possibly summative assessment tool that is handy and available at all times. Another way to look at assessment, which I think Maddie's going to talk about, is with Flubaroo.
Joe's right. So we'll be talking about Flubaroo, which you use in concert with Google Forms. So this icon here is a link to Flubaroo's website, so you can go ahead and add that onto your Google Suite. And here we have a video of how it works, a really short, minute and a half, something like that, just overview of all of the functions that Flubaroo offers. There's also some really cool videos on YouTube, like 10 functions you didn't know Flubaroo had. So it's truly the gift that keeps on giving. It is free. It's a Google add-on. It works with Google Forms. It's designed to work as a partner with Google Forms and Google Sheets. It is something that I see as primarily a teacher use. It uses a Google login, so no additional logins you'll have to create or remember here. And its primary function is it makes grading and feedback super fast, efficient, and painless. I don't know about you guys, but my teammates could always tell when I had a lot of stuff to grade because I would rearrange my classroom or recatalog my library. And so this add-on is something that is probably one of my favorites and really redefined the way that I did assessments, but also the way that the kids got feedback. So what's cool about this is once you have the Flubaroo add-on, and you'll see how this works in the video, once learners take a Google form assessment and a Google Sheet is generated with their answers, you simply turn on the Flubaroo add-on and it grades all of the responses for you based on the key that you submitted. And in addition to grading all of the responses, there's two really important functionalities that I want to highlight. The first is email student. Once the grading is complete, you can click to email students their scores and how they did and their feedback. And again, you'll see how to do this in the video. So kids can literally get feedback on how they did on their assessment, what learning they have and what they need to work on before they even leave the room, which is great for teachers too. The other piece of this that's really valuable is that Flubrew does some really basic analytics for you. Flubrew will highlight problematic questions where more than 60% of your class didn't do well on those. Flubrew grades based on the grading scale that you choose. So you can choose percentages or a 1 to 4 scale. And so Flubrew grades that, and you get instant analytics that you can group and manipulate for all kinds of analytical purposes. And again, this is all literally instant. Flubrew takes like 40 seconds to grade all of the responses, which is, again, a huge time saver for teachers, makes things super efficient, and allows you to give feedback to your learners immediately. And so offers a lot of pieces that really would put this technology up in those higher levels of the SAMR model, because it allows teachers and students to have access to things that were previously inconceivable without this add-on. So big fan of this one. This one's definitely a Maddie Shepard favorite, and really makes assessments a lot more meaningful and efficient for kids and teachers. But we're not finished there. We've got other fun tech tools too.
Right. So there are a lot of tech tools out there, as Christy and Maddie have both alluded to, more than we could possibly cover in one PD. But some of the things that we really like and we wanted to point out to you, and we're going to talk a little bit more about, are Canva and Screencastify. But others that are on here that you may have heard of or you may want to look into, one is Breakout EDU, which helps you create digital escape rooms. If we were back in brick and mortar buildings and you could have your students in your classroom, all of our JCPS libraries have breakout kits that you can check out. You should be able to check out as a teacher and build breakout opportunities for students in your class. But if you go to the Breakout EDU website, there are a lot of digital escape rooms as well, ways to do this virtually. You don't have to be in person to create some escape rooms. So that's one tool. Bloxels, which is a really neat tool that allows students, we were talking, again, thinking about that SAMR model. If we're looking at students writing narratives at the base level, we may have kids with paper and pencil write a story and make sure they're including all the elements of a narrative. What Bloxels does is lets them apply that knowledge and create their own game. It brings in coding, brings in storytelling, narrative writing. And again, if we were in schools, or even if we were not, you could check out Bloxels kits from the district. We have those that you can check out and use in your classrooms. So that's a really great one that takes assessment of a narrative and narrative writing to a whole new level. We couldn't have done that without the technology. Minecraft, lots of students love Minecraft, whatever grade they're in. It seems across the board, everybody loves Minecraft. Just a shout out here that it is now compatible with Chromebook. That is new and it's exciting. There are a lot of others here. Desmos, Equatio, those are great for math, for kids to demonstrate their learning with their math and apply those things into their day-to-day work while they're learning those equations, but it's also a way for them to show that in a summative way and apply their work. I believe that both of the images here are links to additional lists of tools that you may want to explore and look at as you move forward in your tech journey. But as I said earlier, we're going to focus on two right now. First with Canva. Canva is a really neat tool to help students create things of their own rather than just always being submissive and taking information in. They get to create something of their own using Canva. They can use it with iPad, they can use it on their Chromebooks, they can use it on laptops. I even use it on my phone. So it's available across the board. Whatever device they have, they should be able to use it. It does require a login, and it's free for a limited access, right? So there are images and things that are in there that would cost money. Canva also is one of those that I believe is only approved for students 13 and over. But what really we recommend is that you just create one teacher login that's yours. It could be generic. It could be, hi, this is Ms. McKim's class, and the password is Yellow Jackets. And all my students can use that one login that is mine. And then I have a class Canva account that I can now see everyone's work in that one space. That's what I would recommend, because that way you know what people are doing and there's no risk involved there. If you're having students work in Canva, remind them that they need to choose the free images and templates, because there are things in Canva that cost money. They wouldn't get very far if they chose the ones that cost money, because when they get ready to save or download those things that they've created, it will ask them to pay for those. And most of our students don't have a way to do that. So it would prompt them to change those if they chose something that was at a cost. How can we use these in our classrooms? One of the things that I have used for high school students, and I know a lot of our middle school students, is they're creating infographics all the time. It's another way for them to demonstrate their learning. Again, looking at that SAMR model, it allows us to reimagine and redefine what a summative assessment might look like. It doesn't have to be paper and pencil. They can create a graphic for marketing. They could create infographics. They could create a logo for something that's going to go into their slide deck for a presentation. There's lots of things that they can do inside of Canva, and there are a lot of templates there available to them. So it's a really rich presentation tool. If you haven't looked at it, I highly recommend it. And now I think Maddie is going to talk a little bit about Screencastify. Nope, Christy.
And actually, if you'll flip back really quick, Maddie, I just wanted to give a little bit of context for those two pictures. So I actually use Canva in my classroom, and I actually do the same thing, Joe, where I create a generic login and my students just access it. That also allows me, for our project-based learning exhibition night, they wanted to print out their marketing materials. And because I had access to everyone's, we could print them out easily. So these are two marketing materials on the right. We did a project-based learning unit around future cities and some of the problems they were facing. One group focused on the fact that New York needed more green space, and then another group focused on the fact that LA traffic was so bad. So they developed a marketing plan, and one group, they're pretty much giving away bikes for free. So that more people will ride bikes instead of driving their cars. And then the other image is a group developed where you would get a tax break if you put a green space on top of your apartment building or your high rise. And so both of these were done in Canva. And I agree with Joe. I had a student who designed an amazing marketing tool, and they got all the way to the part where they wanted to download, and it costs money. So I always tried to make sure right before that I reminded them, if you don't use the free images, you're not going to be able to download it. So, all right, we can move on to Screencastify, which is another really popular one, I think, during NTI. It took off. So Screencastify is an extension. It is free up to 5 minutes of recording. During the spring, Screencastify did allow for more than 5 minutes. I don't know if that's going to be an option, and if you guys know more about that, you guys can jump in. But I do know it's free up to first 5 minutes. And honestly, for some of my main uses, 5 minutes was plenty. So once the extension is added, you don't have to log in again. It could be for teacher or student use, depending on what you're using it for. You can edit after you've recorded. So a lot of times I recorded my entire screen, and because I didn't want my entire screen in the actual video, I would crop it, and then that way you only actually saw what I wanted you to see. And then also sometimes, as a lot of us have realized, as we record more and more, you might start off wrong, or you might, the ending part might be, you might say something that wasn't supposed to be in the recording. So you can also edit the audio. So I used Google Meet a lot for recording entire lessons, but what I use Screencastify for the most, and this is actually an example at the bottom, it's black currently, but I taught second and third grade during NTI. And so we really have to consider barriers, and I think it's at any grade. You have to consider barriers of learning at home and learning virtually. So one of the things I consider the most is if my students didn't have help from caretakers and they couldn't physically read the text themselves, how are they going to access that information? So a lot of times if I was giving an assignment or a task and it required any sort of reading, I also recorded the reading so that they had the option to also listen to it, because I felt like that wasn't a reason that someone shouldn't have access to the information. So I would do short snippets. The one at the bottom is a script about a fish and a frog, and they had to read it and compare the different characters and things like that. But I just embedded this video into our presentation in Classroom, and that way they had that option. Up at the top right, and also what you'll see, what was linked on, I want to say, on slide 18, where it talked about other fun tech tools. This is actually from our JCPS digital learning channel. So the JCPS digital learning channel and the KY Go Digital channel, what's nice is they have a ton of information, but they're also local. So it's people you might even recognize. It's leadership within JCPS, it's teachers within JCPS, it's leaders within KY Go Digital. So what's nice is not only can you learn from these people, but you can also probably email them after and ask for follow-up resources. So this is a video about how to use Screencastify, and it is from the JCPS Digital Learning channel. And honestly, a lot of the tech tools that I've really learned more about, that's one of the first places I go is JCPS Digital Learning channel or KY Go Digital, and I just type in the search bar, Google Slides, Screencastify, Pear Deck, and a ton of videos will pop up on those topics. I think this is you, Joe.
Sorry, I had my microphone muted. Huh. If you're playing bingo, hopefully I helped you get a square. Okay, so one thing we really wanted to highlight towards the end of this professional learning opportunity is that when we're using technology and apps and software with students, it's important that we're always thinking about security and safety of our students. There is a JCPS approved software site that is linked here in this slide. That's what's underlined there. It shows you what has been approved. It's sorted by category, so you can look by content. You can search by purpose. It also shows you what's not approved. And those are items that have been submitted for approval and deemed as we're not going to recommend this or approve it for use in JCPS. And there is a space in between. For example, we talked about Canva. It will tell you approved for 13 and over, not approved for under 13. It may say approved for adults, but not students. So it gives you all those in-between spaces of what you can use and how you can use it. However, there's a lot of technology out there that is not currently on our list simply because no one has asked for it yet. And it might be exactly what you've been using in your classroom and you didn't know that it wasn't approved yet. So please check that site for any tech tool that you're using. And if it's something you're using is not on there, there's a link on the site to request approval and just submit a ticket to have it checked out. I did that just this week for a piece of software that someone was looking at. And so it's not very hard to do, and it really doesn't take long typically, but it may take a little longer right now because of the high load of requests that are coming in because of NTI. We approved a lot of new things last spring, but even more are going to get added to this list in the fall. The other thing you might want to consider is when you're doing recordings of your classes or your small groups using Google Meets or Zoom or whatever platform you're using, or even if you're just recording a student presentation to use as an exemplar later. In this new world we're in, you might want to check with your administration and make sure that you have all the appropriate photo and video releases signed for all of your students. Some of our students have whether it's religious reasons or cultural reasons, why they don't want their image shared. Sometimes it's about a safety issue. We've had students who maybe they weren't in witness protection, but they were in situations where if their picture got out, they may not be safe. So it's really important to know as you're working with all these different tech tools where data may be shared, where images may be stored on some place that is other than our very secure Google Suite EDU site. we want to make sure that all those forms are signed. So just check with your administration and make sure you've got all that in line.
Well, and just to reiterate what Joe is saying, that's what the software approval process is all about. Is just making sure that the sites that we're using are secure, they have kids and teachers' safety in mind, and everything's kind of kosher in that way. I'll also reiterate something that Joe said earlier, which is that teachers are more than welcome to submit applications for software to be approved, so that JCPS can go through the process of making sure that the sites we want to use are safe for us and safe for kids. And the powers that be that address those things and evaluate those things are really easy to work with. So it's an easy process for teachers to go through. So if there's something you want to be on that list, do not hesitate to submit an application.
Right. So as we're wrapping up, I just want to remind everyone where we started this hour of time, which was with the SAMR model. Whatever tech tool you're choosing to use, think about its purpose and how you're using it. Are you using it simply to replace something you did in person with paper and pencil or with handheld manipulatives? Or are you using it to really redefine and transform that learning experience for students and that instructional experience for you as a teacher? And no, we're not going to live all the time at any one of those spaces. Just like in Bloom's taxonomy, we aren't always at the top. We have to get the knowledge level before we can move up. We're not going to always live at the top of the SAMR model, but it's important that as we're choosing tech tools, we keep in mind our purpose and where it is on that SAMR model, just like we do with Bloom's taxonomy. Christy, Maddie, do you guys have anything to say as we close out our session?
No, I guess I could just build off of that and just say I completely agree. And I think every time I incorporated tech, I asked myself, are they just regurgitating information or are they creating? And like you mentioned, it was never completely one or the other, but I did try to make sure that they were given the opportunity to create with the tech and that they weren't just always doing exactly what we could have done on paper. And so I think the creating with the tech really, is powerful too. Yeah.
When we want to offer as many opportunities for kids to create and be creative and to create demonstrations of learning as we can. We've offered a lot of options to do that with the tech tools that we've talked about. But our IT3 friends in that department are, even more knowledgeable. And the Deeper Learning team, as well as the IT3 team, loves to collaborate with teachers. We're happy to help you find what you need if you're looking for a tech tool. We're happy to do some training with you. We're happy to help you look at your learning designs and co-develop and co-design with you. So don't be afraid to reach out to us. Again, we're happy to work with you. This is one of our favorite things to talk about, is making sure that kids have opportunities to create, not just be consumers all the time. I think we all do enough of that. So with that being said, we'd like to thank everyone for attending our PD today. We hope you'll take the little bit of extra time that we have left over to watch the videos we have embedded. All are very short and are just really great user-friendly overviews into the technologies that we've talked about today. Maybe you want to choose one of these to go ahead and make an account and start to play with. Or maybe you want to go ahead and send us an email. All of our emails are linked on our names here so that when you access the slide deck on your own, you're able to access our emails. And again, we'd love to work with you. So thanks for attending. Happy learning, and reach out to us if you need anything. Thanks, guys.